A group of people is beating a man. A boy named Heewoon is hiding behind some boxes in the room, hearing everything. He hears the man begging for mercy. Kangwoo picks up a stick, approaches the man, and asks why he can't sense the atmosphere. Then he strikes the man's arm with all his strength. Kangwoo says he was about to let him go without staining his hands. But since things turned out this way, they'll give him some rough treatment. He adds that it will be fun and asks if the man doesn't agree. Heewoon covers his face with his hands, terrified, unsure of what to do next. One of the men approaches Heewoon and asks if he's scared, commenting that he looks frightened. Kangwoo grabs Heewoon by the hair and asks why he's trembling in the corner out of fear. He demands to know why Heewoon followed him there today. Kangwoo mentions that Heewoon usually shows up at 8 o'clock and asks if he's decided to tail him all day now. Heewoon asks how he figured it out. He thinks this day is truly insane. Right in front of him, someone is dying. He thought he was hiding perfectly, but now he's caught stalking. The man asks if it even matters how Kangwoo found out. Kangwoo grabs Heewoon's chin, reminding him that he was the one asking the questions, and demands an answer. Heewoon is sitting outside, dozing off. When he wakes up, he immediately wonders what time it is. Checking his phone, he sees it's 11 p.m. It's the first time he's stalked someone this late. He thinks this is too much, that he's gone overboard with stalking, and realizes he's acting like a criminal. He decides he should call a taxi and head to the nearest stop. He notices a light in one of the windows of the building nearby and wonders if it's Kangwoo's room, his classmate. With just a simple greeting, Kangwoo makes Heewoon feel nervous all day. Once, after another casual greeting, Heewoon watched Kangwoo talk to other students, wondering if they were his acquaintances or friends. But he knows Kangwoo doesn't have close friendships. Heewoon feels relieved that Kangwoo is cold toward others and keeps his distance. He thinks Kangwoo is cool and wants to keep observing him. Starting to follow Kangwoo was easy. That day, Kangwoo happened to walk in the same direction as Heewoon. Heewoon thought it was harmless since they were just walking the same way, but he ended up following him all the way home, which is how he found out where Kangwoo lives. Heewoon thinks Kangwoo really lives in a nice house. People say he's a third-generation chaebol, and seeing it for himself, Heewoon believes it's more than just a rumor. He thinks whether it's true or not doesn't matter. The important thing is that he's the only one from the university who knows where Kangwoo lives. He was intoxicated by the sweetness of this secret and didn't see it as a crime, still denying it to himself. He tells himself he doesn't set up hidden cameras or take photos. He doesn't send strange messages either. He's just observing. Today, he accidentally stayed too long and decided to just call a taxi. That's when he saw Kangwoo leaving the house with a group of men. Heewoon wonders where Kangwoo is going so late, dressed so sharply. When the taxi arrives, Heewoon tells the driver to follow the car ahead. At that moment, Heewoon thinks Kangwoo is heading to a club and hopes to see him there. But when they arrive at the stop, the place doesn't look like a club at all. Heewoon thinks about how the taxi ride cost him 50,000 won, and he can't stop admiring how well Kangwoo dressed today. He's curious why Kangwoo came here. Heewoon wonders if he'll get to see a side of Kangwoo no one else knows. Inside, he hears noise, and when he peeks through a crack in the door, he sees a shocking scene. Kangwoo surrounded by men with another man kneeling before him. Recently, Heewoon had been feeling uneasy, especially when it came to Kangwoo's work, and the atmosphere here feels far from pleasant. He's no longer sure if following Kangwoo was the right thing to do. The man begs for mercy, but Kangwoo reminds him that he warned him not to lie. Kangwoo says the man must think he's funny and adds that he's in a bad mood. Heewoon wonders why Kangwoo is saying these things and what he should do after witnessing something dangerous. Should he run? Call the police? He watches as Kangwoo violently beats the man and feels a wave of fear. Kangwoo tells the man that since he made a mistake, he must face punishment. Heewoon panics, unsure of what to do. He can't just stay hidden, trembling with fear. Suddenly, Kangwoo approaches him and points out that there's blood on his lips. Kangwoo says he warned him to clench his teeth before being hit and accuses him of constantly ignoring what others say. He tells Heewoon to listen carefully when someone is speaking and answer their questions. Kangwoo asks him what he had just asked moments ago. Heewoon replies that Kangwoo asked why he followed him all the way here today. Kangwoo tells him not to cry about feeling bad, not to look away, and to answer properly. Heewoon explains that he was heading home, but Kangwoo came out dressed in a suit that suited him so well. He says he thought Kangwoo was going to a club, so he followed. Kangwoo asks if he followed him because he was afraid other guys might approach him. Kangwoo points out that Heewoon had earlier asked how he knew he was being watched. Kangwoo says it was obvious from the very beginning. Heewoon's actions clearly showed his intention to follow him. Heewoon apologizes, admitting he just wanted to observe him. He confesses it was wrong and promises it won't happen again. Kangwoo asks if he didn't follow him because he liked him. He adds that if Heewoon denies it, he might get offended, especially since he likes Heewoon too. Heewoon stammers that he's never thought about it like that. Heewoon promises not to tell anyone anything and pleads not to be killed. Kangwoo replies that in that case, they'll have to start dating. The next morning, Heewoon locks himself in the bathroom, worrying his mother. She asks if he's okay and how much alcohol he drank last night. She also asks why he turned on the water and warns him that the utility bills will be huge. She tells him to at least say something, but Heewoon can't respond at all. His mother asks if he drank all night and pleads with him to say something because she's worried. Heewoon opens the door, apologizes, and says he forgot to call her because he's too distracted. That night, Kangwoo had beaten Heewoon. His mother asks what happened to his face. Heewoon says it's nothing and that he just fell. It's an obvious lie, but his mother pretends not to notice. Heewoon says he'll go wash up because he has tutoring in the evening. His mother says she'll leave a change of clothes for him by the door. She adds that if he's short on money, he can take it from her and asks him not to bury himself in loneliness. Heewoon reminds her that they're saving that money to pay off debts. He asks how much she's given away and if she has any sense left. She says his older brother wants to start a business but was short on funds, asking if that's why Heewoon got beaten. She apologizes. She explains that if his brother gets settled, they'll quickly pay off the debt and urges Heewoon to just trust them. She asks if he believes in his brother and waits for him. She keeps repeating the words sorry. Heewoon tells her it's fine. He locks himself in the bathroom again. Sometimes he wishes his mother were a bad person. On Monday, he goes to the same class as Kangwoo. Everything was fine last week, but today he's terrified. If it weren't for his scholarship, he would have dropped out and run away. He decides to keep as much distance as possible, sitting in a corner and staying out of Kangwoo's sight. He vows not to get on Kangwoo's nerves because he doesn't want to die. He enters the classroom very calmly, as if nothing happened. He notices Kangwoo sitting at the back, and Kangwoo notices him too. Heewoon wonders why Kangwoo is so early. He usually arrives at 8:50. Heewoon freezes in the doorway, and a student behind him asks him not to block the entrance. Heewoon steps out of the classroom, feeling a sharp pain. He feels like he's about to vomit. He tries to convince himself that it's fine, that there are other people around, and Kangwoo can't hurt him here. Kangwoo, however, thinks there's no way Heewoon can escape him. Heewoon decides to go back in and quickly sit in a corner. When another student enters the classroom, they greet Kangwoo and ask why he's so early. Kangwoo says he just couldn't get one thought out of his mind all weekend. After the lecture, Heewoon steps outside, thinking how lucky he was not to run into Kangwoo face-to-face all morning. Thanks to his stalking, he knows Kangwoo's schedule, which helps him now. Today, he only has one tutoring session with Eun. He decides to go home, take a nap, and then head to the session. Suddenly, he bumps into someone and drops his phone. He apologizes and bends down to pick it up, but the person steps on his hand. The boy says that when you apologize, you should look at the person you're speaking to. When Heewoon lifts his head, he sees Kangwoo standing in front of him. Kangwoo asks if he agrees with that statement. Kangwoo asks why Heewoon is frozen. He tells him to get up, but Heewoon panics and collapses to the ground. Kangwoo says he's overreacting. He tells Heewoon to get up and follow him because they need to talk. Heewoon says he has a part-time job. Kangwoo points out that it starts at 8:30 and tells him to stop acting like an idiot unless he wants to get hit again. When they sit together in the car, Kangwoo says he's not some kind of germ and asks why Heewoon keeps running away from him. Kangwoo asks if Heewoon used him and then abandoned him. Heewoon says that's not true. Heewoon says it's probably better for both of them if he stays out of Kangwoo's way. Heewoon admits that he's just scared. Kangwoo asks if he cried again out of fear. Heewoon doesn't answer, so Kangwoo repeats the question. Kangwoo grabs Heewoon by the chin and says he spent the entire weekend thinking about him. Heewoon admits that he also thought about Kangwoo so much that he couldn't even sleep. Kangwoo says he didn't even eat lunch because he was chasing after him. He suggests they have dinner together and tells the driver to take them away. At the table, Kangwoo says he didn't know what Heewoon liked, so he had them prepare Korean food. He tells Heewoon to eat and not to be shy. Heewoon wonders what to do. He can't eat, he has no appetite. Kangwoo asks if he doesn't like the food and reminds him how much effort he put into sneaking into this house. He tells Heewoon that from now on, they'll have lunch together every day. Heewoon says if Kangwoo is only keeping an eye on him out of caution so he doesn't tell anyone, he can guarantee that won't happen. Kangwoo asks what made him think he's being watched. Kanu wonders if this is what watching someone looks like and admits he doesn't even know what to call it. He says he knows Heewoon won't tell anyone anything. Kanu asks how a frightened little puppy like him could even do such a thing. He asks if that's true and tells Heewoon not to look away and to eat. Heewoon realizes that Kanu is trying to toy with him. He thinks about calling the police but knows they're unreliable. He wonders if he should escape to his older brother, who's currently in the Philippines. He thinks about the debt and his mother. Kanu asks why Heewoon looks so gloomy and if he's somehow tormenting him. Heewoon says he was just lost in thought. He says he can easily avoid Kanu. Kanu walks over, grabs Heewoon by the hair, and says he shouldn't have looked at him that way. Kanu says he spent a long time watching him today. Heewoon admits he made a mistake. Kanu asks why he keeps testing his patience. Kanu raises his hand, saying Heewoon only listens when he's hit. Heewoon says it hurts and begs him to stop. Kanu says he understands now and tells Heewoon to sit up straight. He says he hasn't even done anything yet and asks why Heewoon is trembling and acting like this. Kanu tells Heewoon that when he talks, he's supposed to respond, "Yes, I understand." He asks if Heewoon understands, and with tears in his eyes, Heewoon says the words. Kanu says he's adorable. Suddenly, Heewoon starts hiccuping. Kanu tells him to stand up, and Heewoon asks if he's annoying him. Heewoon begins to apologize. But Kanu asks if he really doesn't understand anything since he just told him how to respond when he's spoken to. Heewoon stands up and Kanu tells him to lift his head and clench his teeth. Heewoon thinks Kanu is about to hit him, but instead, Kanu kisses him. The kiss feels unexpectedly gentle to Heewoon, like a strange kind of miracle. Kanu says he keeps going crazy and it's becoming a big problem. He asks if Heewoon is already complaining and tells him to sit at the table and eat. While Heewoon is in class, one of his tutoring clients cancels, saying they feel sick during lessons and that Heewoon keeps showing up with bruises. Heewoon thinks he shouldn't have forced himself to eat as it ended with an upset stomach. Because of his illness, he slept through the entire day and missed all of yesterday's lectures, even his tutoring sessions. He thinks it's a total failure. He returns 500,000 won from tutoring and calculates that he should still have 148,000 left. Heewoon wonders how he'll survive the next 3 weeks. He doesn't understand why all his bad luck came at once. His mother's liver cancer, his father's suicide, the debt left from a failed business, and his brother, Yeon, running off with the money meant to repay the debt. He thinks, though, that compared to those times, things are slightly better now. Suddenly, Kanu approaches and asks why he's laughing to himself. He asks if he can sit with him, and Kanu allows it. During the lecture, Heewoon wonders why Kanu sat next to him. Could it be that he's watching him? This thought terrifies him. Suddenly, Kanu asks if his phone is broken. Heewoon says it's not. Kanu asks if the sad expression on his face appeared out of nowhere, adding that his mood is completely ruined. Kanu asks why Heewoon isn't answering and whether he has hearing problems. Kanu says he's worried about him, especially since he didn't even prepare him for his part-time job, and the very next day, Heewoon skips university and ignores his calls. He says that Heewoon used to follow him because he liked him, but now he's trying to avoid him. Heewoon says that's not true. He explains that he had an upset stomach yesterday, felt unwell, and slept the whole day. He says he's not avoiding him intentionally, and it's the truth. Heewoon starts crying, and Kanu says that seeing him cry makes it seem like he's not lying. Kanu admits he thought Heewoon was avoiding him and was about to get angry. Kanu asks if Heewoon had breakfast. Heewoon says he ate ramen. Kanu asks if even at home he eats junk like that. Suddenly, Heewoon receives a message from Jinu's mother. Heewoon wonders why she's messaging him and if it finally happened. Kanu says he's going to check who Heewoon has been talking to. On Heewoon's own phone, Kanu shows how many times he called. In truth, Heewoon didn't know it was his number. He thought it was a debt collector calling. Kanu tells him to save his number. Heewoon asks how Kanu got his number in the first place. The lecturer announces they'll check attendance and start the lecture, asking everyone to take their seats. Kanu asks if Heewoon really thought he wouldn't find out his number. He adds that now that Heewoon has his number, he must pick up next time. For the third time, Heewoon's friend Hyuk-jin refuses to meet him. While Heewoon is texting him, Kanu asks what he's doing. They're sitting together at Kanu's house at the table. Heewoon says he's texting about a group project. Kanu guesses that Hyuk-jin probably said he couldn't make it to the meeting. He asks if that guy's response is more important than the dinner he prepared. He offers to cut the meat for Heewoon, but Heewoon says he'll do it himself. Heewoon feels uncomfortable, and his stomach is upset again. He regrets agreeing to the group project and thinks he should have declined. During the lecture, The professor explained that the project would be done in groups, and they needed to split into teams of 3 to 4 people. Kanu said they needed one more person. Heewoon asked if that meant Kanu would work on the project with him. Then his friend came over and asked if Heewoon had already joined a group. Heewoon said that with Kanu, they'd have 3 people. Kanu immediately agreed. Heewoon thinks it would have been better if Kanu had refused back then. Suddenly, Kanu asks Heewoon if he knows. Heewoon asks what he means. Kanu says it seems like he doesn't know and adds that he really misses their first evening together. After meeting with Kanu, Heewoon went to his tutoring session. While eating, he thinks there's no point in having meals since he's constantly nauseous. He wonders if Kanu notices. He thinks about how patient Kanu is despite everything. The student asks Heewoon to stop eating. Heewoon apologizes and asks if he's finished everything. The student says he has and asks if Heewoon has noticed that he's stopped putting effort into their lessons lately. He says that even though his pronunciation was bad, he still worked hard before, but recently he's stopped trying altogether. The student says that from the very start of their lessons, Heewoon has been lazy and isn't putting in any effort. He asks if Heewoon is having trouble preparing for his midterms. He says he hasn't mentioned this to Heewoon's mother yet, but asks him to pay attention to it. He tells Heewoon to care about his exams more than his own. He also reminds Heewoon to make sure to have dinner. Heewoon apologizes and promises to try harder. In the evening, Heewoon rides the bus. He thinks about how he couldn't even respond to the words of a 16-year-old boy. He's exhausted and still needs to finish the project by tomorrow. Will he even be able to sleep by 3 a.m. tonight? With classes starting at 9 a.m., he decides to wake up at 7 a.m., wash up, take a walk, and prepare for his major exam, then meet with Kanu again. The next stop is Shin University. 2 boys, clearly students, get off at this stop. Heewoon thinks about how impossibly difficult things feel. Kanu, Heewoon, and Yeokjin meet to discuss the project. Yeokjin apologizes, saying he's been busy with family matters and hasn't had any time. He promises to handle the presentation. Heewoon thinks Yeokjin is pulling the same stunt as last semester. Heewoon says the project is as important as an exam, and without knowing the details, Yeokjin won't be able to present it properly. Yeokjin asks what he's talking about, saying his circumstances were unavoidable. He asks Heewoon to just send him the materials he's already prepared. Kanu says the deadline is next Monday, which means they only have 3 days left. Heewoon has done a lot of work collecting materials, and Kanu seems slightly uncomfortable looking at him. Yeokjin says he understands and asks if he should rehearse. Kanu says it would be better if they all worked together to adjust and finalize the presentation. He suggests they could do this at his house if they don't mind. Yeokjin finds the idea exciting and agrees. At Kanu's house, Yeokjin asks how much the house costs. Kanu tells him to stop looking around and focus on the presentation. Yeokjin says he'll come over and asks why Kanu is in such a rush. Heewoon thinks about how Yeokjin couldn't attend meetings because of family matters, but found the time to visit Kanu's house. Yeokjin sits next to Kanu and asks if he'll show the presentation. Heewoon says he sent it 2 days ago and asks if Yeokjin hasn't looked at it yet. Yeokjin replies that he skimmed it briefly and now wants to look at the details. While looking at the presentation, Yeokjin asks how Kanu managed to do so much, calling him a genius. Heewoon eats a pastry, and Kanu comments that it seems tastier to him than regular food. Yeokjin jokes that Heewoon has become so skinny his neck could be encircled with one hand, then wraps his hand around Heewoon's neck. He asks if Heewoon is scared and says he even tried to protect his food. Heewoon demands to know what Yeokjin is doing and tells him to let go. Yeokjin keeps teasing Heewoon, but Kanu loses patience, grabs a cup and smashes it over Yeokjin's head. Afterward, Kanu asks Heewoon if he's okay and if any blood got on him. Kanu says Yeokjin was annoying and that now he'll become a cripple. He makes a phone call, telling someone to come clean up the trash and bring more pastries. Later, Kanu's servant informs him that the carpet will be replaced by tomorrow. Kanu tells him to handle it himself. Heewoon thinks about how no one came to help while Yeokjin was being beaten, meaning they were all just waiting for Kanu's orders. He wonders how many people have bled in this house already. He thinks that if he irritates Kanu, the same could happen to him. The servant asks what message he should relay to the head of the household. Kanu wraps an arm around Heewoon's shoulder and tells the servant to say that everything is taken care of. Kanu asks Heewoon why he's trembling so much, reminding him that he didn't even hit him. He asks if Heewoon is scared. Heewoon asks why Kanu hit Yeokjin and if it was because he was so upset that Yeokjin didn't do anything for the project. This makes Kanu laugh. He says Heewoon is absolutely right. It irritated him that Yeokjin didn't do anything at all. Kanu asks if there's another scumbag like Hyokjin out there. Heewoon wonders why Kanu is even asking this. It seemed like Kanu said he hit Hyokjin because of him. Heewoon feels strange. Suddenly, Kanu receives a call and says he has business to take care of, so Heewoon should leave. He says he'll send an email to the professor, letting him know they'll handle the presentation. He hands Heewoon a box, telling him to take it and eat well. He says he'll call Heewoon once he's done with his work. Among their mutual acquaintances, rumors spread about what happened. One of them says that Hyokjin got into an accident and was hospitalized in a VIP room. But it doesn't seem like it was just an accident. It looks intentional. The friends say Hyokjin hasn't regained consciousness yet, and Heewoon tries to stop thinking about him. What matters most to Heewoon now is focusing on his exams and tutoring. After this day ends, he still has another subject to study. Suddenly, Heewoon gets a call. He wonders who it could be at this hour. Perhaps the parents of his student? But there are still 3 hours before the lesson. He sees that it's Kanu calling. Heewoon thinks it would have been better if it were the student's parents. Kanu asks why it took him so long to pick up. Heewoon says he was in the library. Kanu tells him to go to the parking lot behind the building. Heewoon thinks about how he only slept 2 hours and worries about falling asleep during the lesson. That would cause him trouble, but Kanu wouldn't care. Heewoon arrives at the parking lot and sees 2 cars there. Suddenly, someone covers his mouth and his books drop from his hands. It's Kanu, and he starts kissing him passionately. Heewoon pushes him away and tells him to stop. He asks Kanu what he's doing. Kanu says he's kissing him because he's happy to see him. He asks how Heewoon thinks he feels when he gets pushed away. Heewoon guesses that it probably doesn't feel very good. Kanu says he understands perfectly. He says that when he's in a bad mood, he might hurt him and grabs him by the hair. Heewoon thinks this is unfair and asks himself why everything has to be so hard for him. Heewoon starts crying and Kanu asks why he's crying. Has he even hit him? He says Heewoon cries when nothing has even happened. Heewoon says it hurt when Kanu grabbed his hair. Kanu asks if that's really the case, then tells him to stop crying, step aside, and pushes him. Heewoon asks why, but Kanu tells him to stop talking, get in the car, and not forget to buckle his seatbelt. Heewoon asks where they're going, and Kanu says they're going to have dinner. Kanu tells him to hurry up and fall asleep because he doesn't want to see dark circles under his eyes. He adds that he'll scold him if he opens his eyes. At Kanu's house, Heewoon is sitting on his lap while Kanu tries to feed him. Heewoon says he can eat on his own. Kanu says he fell asleep while eating, and the food just fell out of his hands. Heewoon says that in that case, he won't eat anymore and that he's already full. Kanu asks if his stomach is so small that he's full after just a few bites. He says, judging by Heewoon's face, it looks like he doesn't need food but sleep. He asks if the nap in the car wasn't enough. Heewoon says it wasn't quite enough. Kanu tells him to get up and they'll go to his room. Heewoon wonders if Kanu will let him go because of his tutoring job. Kanu lays him down on the bed and tells him to sleep. He says he'll wake him up at 8 a.m. Heewoon asks if he really has to sleep right now. Kanu lies down next to him and asks if that's something he doesn't want. Kanu says that if he doesn't want to sleep, maybe he'd like to spend some more time together instead. Heewoon declines, and Kanu says that his refusal is so firm that it's making him a little sad. Heewoon apologizes, saying he didn't mean it that way. He's just very sleepy right now. Kanu laughs and says he was joking. He tells Heewoon to go to sleep while he's still being nice about it. Heewoon notices how gentle Kanu is with him, but doesn't understand why. Heewoon wakes up at 10 minutes to 8. Heewoon snuggles up against Kanu, and Kanu asks if he's cold. Kanu says it's actually nice and asks if Heewoon agrees. He says it would be great if Heewoon didn't leave. Heewoon says he doesn't want to leave either, but thinks that doesn't mean he wants to stay with Kanu. Kanu says that in that case, he doesn't have to leave. Heewoon says that if he doesn't leave, he'll lose his tutoring job. One client has already dropped him, and he doesn't have enough money to pay off the debt next month. He's exhausted. Suddenly, Kanu hands him his card. He says that with it, Heewoon can buy 1,000 of his favorite sweets. Heewoon says he won't be able to pay off the debt. Kanu asks who he owes money to. He tells Heewoon there's no need to repay anything, and that this situation irritates him a little. He tells Heewoon to take the card and stop working. Heewoon thinks that nothing in the world is free, and if he uses Kanu's card, he'll sink into even bigger problems than he has now. Kanu asks what he's mumbling about. Heewoon takes the card but says he can't do this and that he's leaving. Kanu asks why and if his pride has been hurt. Heewoon says that's not it, but Kanu asks what kind of pride he could even have. Kanu says it wasn't a request. He tells Heewoon to quit everything within the week. Heewoon thinks that no matter how much money Kanu has, he could always demand it back later. He also thinks Kanu's interest in him will fade soon anyway. Heewoon says it's time for him to go and leaves the room. Kanu wonders what Heewoon will do tomorrow. The next day, Heewoon comes to class. He notices that Kanu hasn't arrived yet. Heewoon thinks it would be wonderful if Kanu didn't show up at the university today. Yesterday, he basically ran away, hesitating as he took the card. He thought that even if he had it, he wouldn't be able to use it. Suddenly, Kanu greets him and sits next to him. Heewoon stays silent, and Kanu asks if he's not going to say hello. Finally, Heewoon says, "Hi." Kanu asks if he got home safely yesterday. He says he knows Heewoon is brave, but he's trembling now for some reason. Kanu takes his hand and asks why, wondering if Heewoon is afraid of him hitting him. Heewoon thinks that because they're in a classroom with so many people around, Kanu wouldn't dare hit him. Kanu asks if he had breakfast. Heewoon thinks Kanu is a little dense. How many times does he have to explain things before he understands? He looks at Kanu, who tells him that's right, and that during a conversation, you should look at the person you're talking to. Kanu asks what Heewoon had for breakfast. Heewoon says he had ramen. Kanu asks if he likes ramen more than regular food. The lecturer announces that they'll check attendance. After the lecture, Kanu says he won't be able to have lunch with Heewoon today and asks if he can eat properly on his own instead of junk like ramen. Heewoon wonders where Kanu is going if he's not eating. He thinks about how he's earned all the necessary credits and doesn't have any more lectures left. He also wonders if Kanu is planning to kill or threaten someone again. Heewoon says he's going to tutoring, but Kanu reminds him he told him to quit. Heewoon explains that the kids are preparing for midterms, and this time is very important for them. He asks how he could abandon them. Kanu says he's a little worried now and that Heewoon doesn't have many options. He tells Heewoon to listen to him, saying he's doing it for his own good, and warns him that who knows what might happen if he doesn't. He promises to take care of him and spoil him. He asks what Heewoon thinks and says he's just trying to care for him because it seems like Heewoon can't take care of himself. Heewoon starts crying and says that Kanu should go ahead and spoil him.